Before we jump into today's episode, I want to invite you to Rhythm Conference. Rhythm Conference is February 10th and 11th at Northview Church in Fargo, North Dakota, and it's a 2-day gathering that's designed for young adults in their early 20s and 30s to make new friends, to worship together, but also to find our rhythm. This is an ambiguous, sometimes confusing season of life, and we need to lean in together to see what Jesus wants to do in and through our lives. We're going to have some incredible speakers, including Josiah and Micah Keneally, Keith and Kristen Peterson, Jordan Smucker, and we have some guests coming, Grant and Amy Olson of NDSU legend, to spend some time with us, to share with us. So it's going to be an awesome weekend. We're going to have breakout sessions, after parties, and the whole thing is only $40. So all you have to do is go to rhythmconf.com to find more information and register today. Be a friend, tell a friend, rhythmconf.com. We'll see you at Rhythm Conference on February 10th and 11th. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. Today I'm joined by Sam Griesel. What's up, Sam?
Nothing much, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, I am pumped to have you on. Why don't you just give a little bit of background? Well, I'll give a little background and then you can go from there. But Sam and I met when he was at NDSU. He played basketball at NDSU with the Bison for a few years. Do you want to just give an update on where you're at now and what life's all about now?
Yeah, so like you said, spent 4 years there. I graduated from North Dakota State. I mean, I guess in my opinion, had a pretty successful career, and then ended up transferring. So I'm originally from Lincoln, Nebraska, and I transferred for my 5th year back home to the University of Nebraska, and the current point guard. And I'm in my 5th year of college, so I'm doing my master's. I'm in the Master's of Applied Sciences program with an entrepreneurship track, and obviously playing a lot of basketball too. So just kind of playing things out this year, and we'll see where the basketball side things take me in life, and then maybe someday use this degree and start my own business. We'll see.
Dude, I love it. I know it's funny, you get to know somebody when they're on a court, and it's like the passion, and you see like your defensive, and you're obviously like the point guard bringing up the ball, but you're also the commander on defense and everywhere else. But just to get to know you, one of the things that's been really mind blowing to me is just like, you're a good dude who I met you in the community. Really. I met you through our mutual friends. But before we get into that, how did you end up at NDSU anyways? You said you're from Lincoln. So what was that process like? Were you ever wanting to play at Nebraska early on, and what happened there?
Yeah, man, it was my dream to play at Nebraska, and that's, obviously had a big part in my transferring back to Nebraska. But yeah, I grew up a huge Husker fan, whether it was football, basketball, whatever. I loved going to their games and just supporting them. Getting into my first few years of high school, I didn't really have a whole lot of attention until my junior year. It's kind of when I started to get some scholarship offers to some D2s, and then eventually turned into a decent amount of Division I offers. And I actually originally committed like right before my senior year of high school. I committed to the University of South Dakota, and played my senior year out, committed to them, signed my national letter of intent with them. And then in like March, the coach that I had committed to, he decided to move and go to a new school. So I got my release from USD and had already built a really good connection with a lot of the NDSU coaching staff that was there at the time, and felt really comfortable. And honestly, it reminded me a lot of home, a lot of Lincoln, just on a little bit smaller of a scale. It's a town driven by their football.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, just ended up, I was comfortable with where I stood, and what Coach Richmond wanted from me as a basketball player and a person at North Dakota State. And yeah, I committed probably middle of May, and like 2 weeks later I was there. So it wasn't a whole lot of time. Like, he's committed there, but yeah, I mean, it was a great experience for me.
was the winter. I know it's obviously not like 90 degrees and sunny in the winter in Nebraska, but was that a shock for you? Or like what was your first encounter with Fargo like, and what was living in Fargo like for you?
Yeah. I mean, by the end of my career there, I was definitely used to the winters.
Yeah, it
And
only
nothing,
takes 5 years, so
yeah, nothing really surprised me too much. But yeah, I mean, my first 2 years, I think the biggest difference was the fact that the snow never melts. Like in Lincoln, it'll snow, I mean, a few times a month probably, where it actually like will stay. But it always at some point will get back above freezing. We'll have a day where it's 40 and 50 and everything melts. In Fargo, it just once it hits November, it just keeps on stacking, never gets above freezing, and obviously the wind is just brutal. But yeah, it was my first few years a little bit of a shock. And I would tell people, yeah, the wind chill is like -40, -50, and they're like, how are you alive? And it was just like they give us nice coats, man. I don't know.
yeah. I've been here 29 out of 31 years of life, and I don't think you can ever like truly get used to it.
Yeah.
We were, my wife and I, we were just down in Florida for like a work conference. And when we got back, it was like -30 wind chill. When we got back, it's like we should have just stayed. Like if we didn't have kids to come back to, we had just
Yeah.
been there forever. But when you were coming up here and like being recruited and stuff, were you familiar with any of like the because you were a little removed from like the initial NCAA tournament runs for any Bison nerds and Bison fans, the Ben Woodside era and all that. Did you know who those guys were, or did you just kind of come in like, well, we'll see what happens?
Yeah, I didn't really know any players, to be honest. I remember seeing, I can't remember what year they made the tournament where I watched, but I think it might have been like 2014, 15 or something
Okay.
around there. And I remember just seeing them in the tournament, and I was like, I just saw the NDSU on the jersey, and it always kind of stuck with me because I think they were, I don't know, like a 12 or a 13 seed. And, a lot of the times for basketball junkies, the 12-5 game is the game that's, always there's at least like 112 that wins every year against a five. So
Right.
they're always really talented groups. And I just remember seeing, um, briefly watching them in the tournament, but obviously I wasn't like following them all year and stuff like that. But I definitely when one of the assistants first reached out to me, and I got a letter from NDSU. I knew I had recognized the school and remembered that I saw them in the tournament in years past. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I know I was a senior in high school when they went to the tournament for the first time. So like I remember being in English class watching on the TV, like our English teacher was a NDSU Bison alumni. So she was just like, yeah, we're watching this. But yeah,
yeah,
it's just been cool because, now you're at the Big Ten where you play schools that are competing to win the NCAA tournament every year. And we're just like playing to get in. And I think that's the fun as a basketball fan. Like it's just fun. And like seeing you guys scrap your way over these last few years. And obviously, one of the things I was going to ask you about was, in 2020, stinking COVID, you guys had won the summit. You were on your way to the tournament. So what was that experience like? Like what was that like leading up to it, finding out you were not going to be able to play and even ever since then?
man, yeah, that was a special group. That was my sophomore year. We were really talented, really, really talented. Obviously, we played UND in the championship game, so that was pretty cool. And just absolutely blew them out. And
To
I
be
think a
honest,
lot,
I didn't remember that part of it.
yeah.
That
I mean,
makes it all the better.
we won, yeah, we beat them by like 30 in the championship, and I mean, that was just an awesome, awesome experience. And you go from this like incredibly like high emotional high, and 2 days later you get told like something that's completely out of your control, like the tournament's canceled. And I mean, just like every other person, in the world when all that was happening, just like I don't know what tomorrow's gonna look like. And so yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster of emotions. But I'm still, pretty close. I talked to Vinny, who is our point guard. I talked to him a decent amount still. Tyson, I'll talk to him through social media sometimes. And obviously Jared was a GA for us after he played. He's one of my good friends. So there was that year was special for a lot of reasons. We really believe that we could have made a run and been, a Cinderella story, if you will, because we were really talented. And it's just unfortunate that we didn't get to see what we could do in the tournament.
For sure. And I think, as we kind of inch into some other conversations, I think um, when we deal with disappointment in life, like there's lots of ways that we can navigate that and move past that. And like, I just think of that as an athlete at heart, like playing high school sports, playing sports as a kid, you just want to compete. You want to go, you want to play at the highest level you can. And for that to be like really stripped away from you guys. And I know obviously just to not be able to get back to that point, like you live with that, but yet I think there's a lot of things in our life that are that way. And we'll like sit on those things as like peak moments of negativity in our life, but God can really bring, different things in our life that give us perspective that we can never have before. And I know where I met you was through Landon Solberg, who is a mutual friend of ours. And so I know that was a connection through NDSU, but you just want to tell me about like getting to know Landon, getting out in the community like you have, and how that made an impact on your life.
Yeah. So when I first got up to Fargo, obviously we had, camps for kids in the summers. Um, and they were usually really fun for like the first day or two. And then it kind of gets to the point where it's like, all right, counting down the hours here.
Yeah.
Uh, Parents, come get your kids. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we were role models to those kids and it was awesome. But yeah, that's how I first met Landon. Landon was had already been kind of integrated within the team, just had met some of the guys and been around some of the guys. But Dave introduced him to me, and I think obviously it was my first year, so I didn't know Dave all that well, Coach Richmond, but I know he kind of saw um, something in me and saw similarities between me and Landon, and just how we lived our lives. So he wanted to make that connection right away, and Landon just kind of followed me around for the camp. And so that's how I got to know him, and just I don't know. I think one word, if I were to put a word on my whole college experience and college career so far, maybe just my life, is just perspective. I think that's such a forgotten word for so many people. And, I've been fortunate enough. Obviously, I worked with, I was around Landon a lot, but then eventually that grew into me being an intern for the foundation, and got to just experience so many cool things and relationships. And um, I think, especially as college athletes, we're kind of put on this um, pedestal or whatever, and people kind of forget that we're human beings and that we have emotions and stuff like that, and we go through things. And a lot of the times, we think athletes as athletes, I mean, our schedule is so busy, and man, I don't want to go to lift. I don't want to practice today. Like, this sucks. And then you meet a Landon Solberg, and it's like, this dude has been through more things than I could ever imagine. And every single time I see him, he just lightens up the room, and he is talking to people. He's so kind to everyone. And it just seemed like for the time that I knew him, he just lived like such a simplistic life. And that was driven by his faith, number one, and just relationships that he had with, whether it was his parents or someone like me. And so that just really kind of stuck with me. And one of the sayings that they have is live like Landon lived. And I'm just always, I've never gotten a tattoo, but I want to get one tattoo, and I want live like Landon lived on. That's what the tattoo I want. Just because it reminds me of the perspective of life and not getting so caught up in, day-to-day things that we worry about. And just, yeah, I mean, his relationship with me just brought so much perspective to my life, and impacted me, so positively for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. And I love that part too, where like Dave saw something in you. And I think, I've gotten to know Coach Richmond well enough to know that he cares more about, you guys as human beings and as players that can make his program better, who can win games, help him get a new job or something. Like he's not about that at all. And I think we all need those people in our lives that like push us to those places. Cause I think there's people in my life that I wouldn't be where I'm at, or I wouldn't have been challenged to step out of my comfort zone if it wasn't for somebody pushing me. So what's that relationship been like with Coach Richmond for you? And, you know, when you look back at that moment, that camp moment, and just beyond that, like how has that changed the trajectory of your life?
Yeah. I mean, for my 4 years there, Coach Richmond was a really big role model and just a male figure in my life. You know, obviously I look up to my dad. Um, he's one of my best friends in life, and me and him have a fantastic relationship. And then one other guy, Thomas Filianco, is my trainer, and he's kind of a mentor for me. And for those 4 years, I mean, I would have conversations with Coach Richmond that I don't think a lot of players and coaches have with each other, just about life and things bigger than basketball. And I was very appreciative of him in my 4 years there. Obviously, we had a fantastic relationship. We won a lot of games together. But I think just him being a positive role model for me as an 18-year-old kid, and then moving on to obviously now I'm 22. But just, seeing how good of a father that he was to his four daughters and how good of a husband he was to his wife. And obviously I was around them a lot while I was in Fargo. And I think that was the biggest part for me, was just him being a positive male role model for me.
That's cool. I think, there's those people that you want to emulate, that you want to model, whether parts of your life or whatever. And I know, when I met with him one time, I wasn't sure. He was the one who reached out, and I was like, "Oh, this is sweet, cool. I'm excited." And he's just like, "How can I get my guys plugged into the community?" Our foundation did work in Fargo, and he's just like, "I want my guys to get exposed to needs around them, that they would live for something that's bigger than themselves." And obviously, that's something you've carried with you. So you interned with the foundation. What was that experience like? I think the first time we talked was you checked me in at the Landon's Lake golf tournament. But what was that experience like, just doing an internship for a nonprofit? Obviously, you guys were very involved in the community. And so, yeah, I just want to hear about that.
Yeah. That experience was probably, I mean, it's probably had the single like biggest impact on my life. Just because it was like brought to my attention the importance of relationships. And like, I don't know, us as human beings, we go through so many experiences in life and we meet so many people, and sometimes you take for granted like people that you meet in your life, and like genuinely just good and good-hearted people. And I met so many people like that through that foundation. It was amazing. And in Fargo, obviously I was able to see them a lot more than I do now and talk to them more. But just I was so, and still am so, grateful for everyone that I met through that experience. And especially the kids, and like Blake Hill, which has kind of become a public thing, but
Yeah.
him through the foundation. And just like kind of the same thing with Landon, just like the impact that those children can have on you. And all you do is show up and try to help them, and they end up helping you more than you could have ever imagined. And so it's just a really cool um relationship where you give and you receive at the same time. And yeah, I don't know, that whole experience just changed my life for the better. It just really made me want to focus on like good, genuine people, and relationships that you have, and eventually can build and just keep good people in your life.
That's good. What advice would you give, somebody that's in college or is just kind of like on the outside of college? Life is starting to get real, bills need to be paid, all those things. Like, what advice would you give them when maybe the temptation is to kind of like, all right, I'm going to build my world now. I'm going to get into my home, find my comfort zone. How would you encourage them to maybe stretch out and step out of their comfort zone?
I mean, depending on, someone's personality, it can be a pretty scary thing, especially, if you're moving maybe away from home for the first time and you're there on your own and you don't know what to do. But it takes one chance really and one opportunity. Um, and like for me, I mean, this whole Landon's Light thing was I met Mary Ellen, who was my boss, and obviously I knew Travis and Andrea Solberg already, but um, just somewhat of a random type of deal. And now I have this connection, this whole Landon's Light family that I have, that I love and they love me, and it's all genuine, and it's just all from one step and taking kind of one chance. And for that summer that I was interning with them, obviously I'm a college athlete. I was pretty busy. Maybe sometimes I was stressed out, but it's so worth it in the end, when you get good people in your life and you just can have those genuine relationships. It makes you into a better person, and you can have just such a more positive effect on this world.
Love that. One, and speaking of perspective, I know the start of your final season at NDSU didn't probably go the way you expected it. And so why don't you just talk about that a little bit, what happened and kind of the aftermath of that?
Yeah. So I first game of the year, my senior year, first official Division I game. We were out in California. We were playing Cal Poly, and yeah, that night I felt weird. I started to feel sick, and long story short, I had a stomach ulcer that we didn't know about. I ended up on the floor. I passed out and threw up like half of my blood. Um, Ended up in the hospital for 24 hours, had to have surgery and to cauterize the ulcer. And I don't know, it was definitely the scariest. Like I remember just laying there on the floor and it was dark, so I didn't really know that it was blood, but I knew something was really wrong. Like I didn't have any idea what it was in the time until the paramedics came and I got to see doctors and stuff. But like I remember just laying there in that moment being so scared and like just I didn't know what was wrong with my body and I knew I had like no control over it. And then it was it's an interesting experience. It's not you can't really like put words to it, but like for me, so I had met Blake, who I already talked about, and then Landon as well. And when I was on like the stretcher being rolled out of the hotel, I remember just thinking of those two and their like medical hardships and what they had experienced and just what they would do in the situation. And I remember just having their face just kind of in my head. And it gave me a sense of like comfort and ease. And I don't know, it's one of those moments where you can almost feel like yeah, I just knew that God was with me because I was thinking of those two kids. And again, it comes back to perspective. Like when I was helping these children, I had no idea that in a year I was going to face, a life-threatening experience. But obviously I ended up doing or having that life-threatening experience. And because I tried to do my best to help these children, like it in return helped me in one of the most stressful and craziest situations that I've ever been in my life. So it was a really cool full circle moment. And just one thing I kind of wanted to bring up on this podcast is like, I don't know if you've heard it, but like the story of the Chinese farmer. And it's about like the perspective of the future.
I don't think so,
And
no.
so basically it's like there's a Chinese farmer. Um, he has a horse and he lives in this village. And one day the horse leaves and all the villagers come to him and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry. You must be so sad that your horse left." And then the next day, the horse comes back with like five wild horses. And then the villagers come and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you must be so happy. You have so many more horses now." And then the next day, he has a son, and the son gets on one of the wild horses, rides the horse, and he gets bucked off and falls and breaks his leg. And the villagers come to him. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry. Your son broke his leg. He can't do anything, whatever." And then, time passes and there's a war and the army comes and is trying to recruit the kid, but they won't take him because he has a broken leg. And the villagers come to the father and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you must be so happy. Your son gets to stay with you. He doesn't have to go to war." And it's just like I first heard it from Tom Brady. Um, and it's just a story that's really stuck with me because I mean, he talks about the perspective of the future and how we can be so quick to judge like things that happen in our lives and God's plan for us. And a lot of the times we don't realize like we only have the perspective of us and what we see. God sees everything and he sees the whole plan. And it just kind of has really stuck with me. And any time that I'm going through something really tough or whatever, even something that's really good. You never really know in the moment if something is going to be really good or really bad until the future happens. So
Right.
it's just, I just thought I would like to share that story because it's something that's really stuck with me and it's really a kind of a cool way to describe it, I guess.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, yeah, our perspective, I think sometimes it's like we come up to a wall and we're staring at the wall. And if we were just to be able to like back up and see that around the wall is something really good. Or,
Yeah.
of course, we're going to hit challenge after challenge. But, I just think you said it like God's plans are higher, and that's just a truth that I've tried to cling to. Like God's plans are higher than my ways. Like his ways are higher than mine. And also just there's the story of Joseph in the Bible too, where Joseph has pretty much every bad thing that you can possibly think of, and then he
Yeah.
has some mixed in good things, but then always goes bad again. And at the end of his life, like he has this opportunity to get vengeance on his brothers, and he says something that has always been impactful to me. He says, "What you meant for harm, God has used for good." And I just think God loves to make good out of bad, and he loves to get the glory for it, And so what has been maybe like, how did that encounter, your life threatening illness being half your blood, that's just always been insane to me. But how did that encounter like impact your faith and the way that you view God and the way that you walk with God?
It gave me a sense of like just gratefulness for the life that I have and um the experiences that I've had and really like has made me not take anything for granted. Because I mean in all reality we don't know if tomorrow will be, the last day of our lives or if it's 80 years from now. But just kind of live each day just with that perspective. I always come back to that word, but that perspective and I mean my relationship as God with God has grown immensely since that whole situation. Because like I said, I just like felt this like presence with me. Um, and I grew up, I got confirmed and I went, I mean, my parents weren't like super strict about church and stuff like that. So I didn't like necessarily grow up like super, super religious. I was a Christian. Like I said, I got confirmed. But really, like ever since that experience in the last probably 2 years, I've kind of taken it upon myself to like I have my own study Bible now, and I absolutely love like I try to read, 20 to 30 minutes of it every day and just dive into the word. I think because we have like this handbook in a way of that has been, a gift to us and it's just so interesting and has been so cool to relate so many of the things that I've been through in my life and just like learn more about God and Christianity as a whole. And I just keep on growing in my faith every single day, and it's been a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I love that. And you're just getting started. That's the best part, that it's a long road ahead. And, I know it's in Proverbs, but it says, many are the plans in the man's heart, but the purpose of God prevails. And like, I just know like God's got purpose for your life. And as you keep following him, I'm just pumped to see, where God takes you and just your
Yeah,
perspective, just your willingness to serve, your willingness to do things that are beneath you in a sense of like what's expected of you. I just think has always been something that stood out to me. But it's just so cool to see, um, what God's been doing in your life, through your life, and then obviously going to Nebraska. What's that experience been like? You wrapped up at NDSU, and I know you weren't sure what was next. And so here you are playing for the Cornhuskers, your dream come true, hometown kid. Like, what's all that been like?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a dream come true. It's been a dream come true and then some even. Like I didn't even realize, what this like I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really go into this with any expectations necessarily. One thing that I always just remind myself and continue to remind myself is like I just want to make my 10-year-old self proud. I looked up to Nebraska basketball players like they were superheroes. And, I just want to always have that, reminder in my head, like do the next right thing and just be a good person, be a good human being. And I mean, this place has blessed me with so many amazing things from basketball to relationships to, different opportunities that I've had to meet, so, some really cool people. Um, and, sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming just being the hometown kid and trying to go to a high school basketball game. Like I went to my old high school uh a few weeks ago and I didn't know this, but it was like eighth grade night. So there was just a million middle schoolers and I walk in and I just got it was like sharks and when blood hits water.
Oh my goodness.
It was crazy. It was really cool. And I remember, being that kid and I made them get in the line like right next to the concession stands and it was funny, but I would have been in that line when I was 10 and just, remembering what such a little thing for me can do for someone. I've had parents tell me like, oh my gosh, you made my son's whole month, whole year by just like saying hi. And I don't know, it's been amazing. It's been really cool. It's gone by really fast. And I'm just looking forward to, the next 2 months, I guess, that I get. And just cherishing each moment that comes with that.
I love that. I think like you're in a unique scenario in that regard, and you know, I think we all have those opportunities though. And whether it's for me, it's like with my kids, like those little things, the extra time, the moments where I just get on my knees and play football or wrestle, and like I just think sometimes like how inconvenient some things in our life are, even like the really good things. I'm not saying my kids are inconvenient, by the way, but
Yeah.
I just think we all have those people, those encounters in our life that we can do a similar thing where it's, hey, it's a small thing. It's a gesture to the checkout person at the grocery store, to the guy standing at the gate taking our ticket, and just being showing the love of Jesus really to those people. And obviously there's boundaries, like you know that like anybody else. But I think that's the beautiful thing when our eyes and our perspective is God's perspective or as close to it as we can get. Like we see the world differently. We see the kid that's in line waiting for an autograph or waiting for a picture differently because this is a moment that who knows what God can do with this or just make a kid happy, like in the rawest form. So I love that perspective. That's cool. I'm sure it's not always easy though.
Yeah, it's not. And it's, kind of to go along with what you were saying, you never know who's watching. Um, and just like you said, like the small thing, one small thing can have such a ginormous impact on a person. And it's cool. It's cool to have, be in that position for people, I guess.
That's awesome. Got to talk, 1 minute of NDSU hoops quick. You're in Nebraska now, and so Coach Richmond and the boys, we started a little slow, a little sluggish, but they're rolling now. I've just loved, for any basketball fans, Grant Nelson is kind of blown up in the Twitter world and stuff. So what's it been like to watch from afar these guys that you've played with? Most of them that you haven't because they're all freshmen, but what's it been like to watch from afar and just that relationship?
Yeah. Well, first off, just with Grant, I mean, it's cool to see how he's, blown up on social media and stuff. because for like I was with him for 2 years and I saw this stuff every single day in practice, and I was just like, what how is that even possible? Like, you shouldn't be able to do that when you're 6'11". But it's cool that he's getting, the recognition that he deserves and the hard work that he puts in. But yeah, I mean, the team is really, really fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie, like at the beginning of the year, it was a little weird for me. Just like look out there and see, obviously so many. I was with Tyree for 4 years, Rocky with 4 years, Jarius with 4 years. And it was just weird to like see a different team out there. But I've watched a lot of games, and especially in conference, it's fun. It's been fun to watch them play and put up a lot of points. So
Yeah, there's a new feel right now.
yeah.
Bowden, I got to give a shout out to Bowden. He's my guy. I love Bowden so much, and it's just been fun to see him step up and be a leader. Like when he was on this team last year, like he obviously had all those qualities, but it's just fun to see how people develop and grow and all that. So I like to finish with one question, and that is, I know you're 22, so you're pretty young. You are a young adult for sure. But if you were to just go back even to 18-year-old Sam, like what's one piece of advice you would give him?
Um, I think it sounds, I guess, simple and pretty cliche, but I would just say believe in yourself. I wasn't ever really, sometimes I still struggle with it a little bit, but I was never really like, from a basketball sense for sure, too, just like the most confident person. I kind of always needed like that reassurance from someone else. Like if someone told me go be the best basketball player on the floor, then I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I was never like self-driven. Like obviously I worked really hard, but I wasn't like, I didn't have that confidence going into everyday life or every a game where I was like, I'm going to be the best player. I am the best player on the floor or whatever. So I think that can really apply in anything in life, whatever you're trying to do. I would just
Yeah.
say believe in yourself. Don't listen to the naysayers. There's I've read David Goggins' book. I don't know if you know that name,
I don't think
but
so.
he's he's kind of like a motivational speaker, and he's a hardcore dude. He's kind of known as like a really hardcore dude. I'm not gonna lie, but I heard him say once like there's never been a hater that is doing better than the person that they're hating on. Um, so just I don't know, don't listen
Wow.
to
Yeah.
outside critics and stuff like that. Believe in yourself and believe in your journey, and just love the process that comes with it.
Dude, love it. Hey, this has been a blast. Thanks for taking some time, hanging out, just sharing a little bit of your life. I know you've got a busy life. I'm sure you're on the road again soon here. Where to next for Husker
So we
basketball?
play Penn State. Will come here on Sunday, and then we'll go to Michigan that next Wednesday, so a week from today. And then yeah, we'll be home for Wisconsin. So yeah, our I mean, we're coming off like a 4-day travel trip, so I think we deserve a few days at home finally, which is nice.
Agreed. Well, good deal. Well, good luck the rest of the way. Appreciate you a ton and can't wait to catch up with you again. All right.
Sir, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.